It all started with a simple question from a pair of cops, but what happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. In today's video, we take you to a First Amendment audit like no other. Watch as a calm and confident individual exercises his rights while facing law enforcement officers who are determined to get his ID. With every question thrown his way, he handles the situation with precision and professionalism, leaving the officers speechless. As the tension builds, you'll see just how powerful knowledge of your rights can be, and how staying composed can turn the tables in an intense encounter. Will the officers respect the Constitution, or will they push their limits? Stay tuned as the story unfolds, and prepare to be inspired by someone who knows exactly how to stand their ground without crossing any lines. You won't want to miss this one. As the interaction unfolds, it becomes clear that this isn't just any routine stop. The officers seem uncertain, almost defensive, as if they're trying to regain control of the situation. The individual calmly and clearly explains his right to remain silent and not provide ID, all while maintaining a cool demeanor. But the cops aren't backing down. They press harder, their questions becoming more pointed, their requests for identification growing more insistent. It's clear that they're not used to someone standing their ground so confidently. There's an underlying tension in the air, with each passing moment making the situation more unpredictable. The officers begin to circle, attempting to find a loophole, a way to assert their authority. But the individual doesn't flinch. It's a battle of wills now, and the clock is ticking. Will the officers escalate, or will they finally back off? The power struggle is far from over. The officers' patience is starting to wear thin, and it's becoming clear they're not used to being challenged like this. They exchange quick glances, trying to regroup and figure out how to approach the situation. One of them steps forward, trying a different tactic, offering a friendly tone, almost as if he's trying to reason with the individual. "Look, we're just doing our job here," he says, as if that should be enough to settle the matter. But the individual stands firm, repeating that he's not obligated to provide ID unless there's probable cause. It's a classic dance, but the stakes feel higher with every word. Meanwhile, a small crowd begins to gather, watching the tension unfold. Some are clearly on the officer's side, others are intrigued by the individual's unwavering stance. But there's more going on in the background than just the confrontation. A bystander's phone is quietly recording, and the camera captures every moment, every word. The officers know they're being watched, and that only adds to the pressure. Each attempt to escalate seems to hit a wall, with the individual calmly but firmly refusing to comply. The longer this standoff lasts, the more it seems like they're both testing each other's limits. The question on everyone's mind: will this situation de-escalate, or is it headed for an unexpected confrontation? The tension is building, and neither side seems ready to back down. The tension is almost unbearable now, and you can feel the unease ripple through the air. The officers are clearly frustrated, their confidence starting to crack as they realize this isn't going the way they expected. One of them steps closer, his voice slightly raised, trying to assert authority. "If you have nothing to hide, why not just cooperate?" he says, his tone teetering between frustration and desperation. But the individual doesn't waver. Instead, he calmly repeats his rights, as if reminding everyone, including the officers, that the law is on his side. The crowd is growing larger, with whispers and murmurs spreading through the onlookers. Some people are filming, others are just watching in stunned silence. The officers seem to notice the cameras now, their movements becoming more calculated, their words more deliberate. It's clear they're trying to save face, but the individual's calm and steady demeanor is making it harder by the second. Then a sudden shift. One officer reaches for his radio, signaling something, though it's unclear what. The crowd holds its breath, the tension reaching a boiling point. Everyone is waiting to see what happens next. Will they back down, or will this moment take an unexpected turn? The energy is electric, and the climax feels just seconds away. Just when it seems like the officers might step back and reconsider their approach, a third officer arrives on the scene. This one carries a different energy, calm but assertive, scanning the situation with sharp eyes. He doesn't waste time with small talk, but instead asks the others for a quick rundown of the encounter. The tension shifts again as the two officers try to explain themselves, their voices laced with frustration, but also a hint of uncertainty. The newcomer takes a moment, then steps forward to address the individual. His tone is measured but firm, as if he's trying to assert authority without escalating the conflict. "I understand you're exercising your rights." He begins, but there's a subtle edge to his words. He shifts the focus, asking pointed questions designed to catch the individual off guard. For a moment, the crowd seems to hold its collective breath, wondering if this new officer will succeed in turning the tide. But the individual stays calm, his responses just as steady and precise as before. It's clear he's prepared for this, but the dynamic feels different now. The crowd senses it too, and the murmurs grow louder. The officers appear more divided than ever, their frustration clashing with the pressure of being watched. Meanwhile, the cameras keep rolling, capturing every second of this increasingly intense standoff. Something's about to give, but no one can predict what's coming next. As the tension reaches its breaking point, the third officer takes a deep breath and steps back, as if reconsidering his approach. "We don't want this to go any further," he says, addressing both the individual and his fellow officers. The crowd is silent now, every eye glued to the unfolding scene. It seems like the standoff might finally de-escalate. But then, out of nowhere, a voice from the crowd speaks up. "Why don't you just admit he hasn't done anything wrong?" The comment catches everyone off guard, including the officers. The individual remains calm, his expression unreadable, but the officers exchange uneasy glances. The third officer, clearly trying to regain control, gestures for the others to step aside. "Let's talk," he says, pulling them into a hushed conversation just out of earshot. The crowd, now emboldened, begins murmuring louder, their phones still trained on the scene. Finally, the officers return. The lead officer, his frustration now replaced with reluctance, mutters something almost inaudible. "You're free to go." The individual nods calmly, thanking them without a hint of smugness. But as he walks away, the final twist comes, not from the officers, but from the crowd. Another person steps forward, confidently questioning why the officers targeted him in the first place. The attention shifts completely, leaving the officers stunned and scrambling for answers as the cameras continue to roll. The encounter may be over, but the ripple effects are just beginning. As the individual walks away, the energy in the crowd begins to shift. There's a sense of quiet triumph, not just for him, but for everyone who witnessed the power of standing firm in the face of pressure. The officers, now under the watchful eyes of the onlookers, seem to realize the moment has slipped away from them. They exchange a few quick words before dispersing, leaving behind a scene that feels both unresolved and deeply impactful. The crowd slowly begins to thin, but not before several people approach the individual, thanking him for standing his ground and setting an example. "You handled that like a pro," one person says, their voice full of admiration. With a polite nod, the individual replies, "It's about knowing your rights and staying calm." As the cameras stop rolling, the message lingers. In moments of conflict, knowledge and composure can shift the balance of power.